Welcome to The Explainer. You know that feeling, right? You're playing a game, you lose, and it's just uniquely frustrating. Why does failing at something that's not even real feel so incredibly personal? Well, today we're going to break down the hidden design that's pulling those emotional strings.
This quote from our source material just nails it. It's this feeling of betrayal, like the game itself is cheating you. The author felt this way after getting stuck in the rhythm game Patapon, and I'm sure we've all been there. It really gets at this core tension between us as players and the rules of the world we're in.
Of course you have. We all have. You hit a wall, and your first instinct is to blame the game's design. But what's really wild is that our whole idea of what's fair in a game has changed so much over the years. Seriously, what we'd call unfair today might have been totally standard a couple of decades ago.
Okay, so to really dig into this, we have to pull apart two ideas that we usually lump together: the actual act of failing and what happens to you because you failed.
And here's where the source makes a really cool distinction. In most modern games, we probably fail way more often than we used to, but the punishment for each of those failures has gotten so much smaller. Think about it. You're not losing all your progress and getting a game over screen anymore. Most of the time, you just lose a few seconds and you're right back in it. And that changes everything. This is a perfect example. You've got a super tough indie game like Flyrunch on one hand and a massive blockbuster like Uncharted 2 on the other. They seem like they're from different planets, right? But deep down, they share this modern design philosophy. Fail as much as you need to, because the punishment is almost nothing. It actually encourages you to experiment, to learn from your screw-ups, and turns failure into just another part of the learning process. And all of this has led to what one writer called the slow death of the game over. That sense of finality is pretty much gone. So if we're failing more but being punished less, what is it that makes a game feel fair or unfair? Well, the answer isn't really about punishment. It's about how the game lets us succeed.
So let's jump into the core framework that our source material lays out. It basically says that games give us three main roads to victory, and each of these roads has its own, very different definition of what's fair.
All right, path number one is the one we all know and, let's be honest, respect the most: skill. It's simple. You win because you're good at the game. You put in the practice, you learn the patterns, you mastered the mechanics. When you're on a skill-based path, failure feels incredibly direct. It's a clear reflection of your own ability, right here, right now. It's the game telling you, nope, not good enough yet. And that's exactly why it's so prized in competitive games. It feels like the purest test of who's better.
Path number two is chance. In these games, winning has nothing to do with your mastery. It's all about the luck of the draw, the roll of the dice, things that are completely out of your hands.
Now, this path has always been a bit controversial. I mean, get this. Pinball was actually banned in places like New York for decades because people thought it was just a game of chance, basically a form of gambling. And when you fail in a game of chance, it doesn't say anything about your skill. It just means, luck wasn't on your side this time. And that brings us to our third path, and this one has become absolutely massive in modern gaming: labor. This path rewards one thing above all else: persistence. It's not about how good you are, it's about how much time you're willing to sink in. The classic example, of course, is something like World of Warcraft. A huge chunk of that game is what players lovingly call the grind, just doing repetitive tasks over and over and over to slowly but surely get more powerful. And you can see that exact same mechanic in a totally different world, like the social game Farmville. Progress there comes from the simple daily labor of planting your crops, waiting, and then harvesting them. It's the same exact principle. You put in the time, you get the reward. In fact, as this great quote points out, even though these games look totally different and are for completely different people, they are fundamentally built on the very same idea of rewarding labor. They are, you could say, separated at birth. So here's the key takeaway. In a game based on labor, failure means something completely different. It doesn't mean you're unskilled, and it doesn't mean you're unlucky. At worst, it just means you haven't put in enough hours yet. It completely reframes failure into this temporary state of just not having succeeded yet. Okay, now this is where things get really fascinating, because these different paths to success aren't just fun mechanics. They actually tap into some of our deepest, most fundamental ideas about fairness in the real world. Check this out. The path of skill, that's basically a meritocracy, where the most talented people rise to the top. The path of chance, that mirrors a kind of egalitarianism, where everybody gets an equal shot. And the path of labor, That's a perfect reflection of the work ethic. The idea that hard work and effort should be rewarded. Games aren't just games. They're like these little playable political systems. But just because a game uses one of these systems, that doesn't mean it's endorsing it. Take Monopoly, for instance. It was originally designed to be a warning about how dangerous corporate greed is. But how do we play it? As a ruthless celebration of crushing our friends and family. So games can be a space to explore these ideas, not just blindly accept them. So we've got the path to success, which shapes how we feel about failing. But there's one more layer to this whole thing, the kind of goal the game gives us. This determines how long that feeling of failure actually sticks around.
The source breaks this down into 3 types. First, you have the completable goal, like in a big story-driven game. Losing a fight just postpones the ending. It stings for a minute, but you know you'll get there. Second, there's the transient goal, like in a multiplayer match. That loss is permanent for that match, but the feeling is gone the second you start a new one. And finally, you have the improvement goal, where you're just always trying to beat your own high score. It's a state of permanent failure in a way, but it's the good kind, the kind that keeps you coming back for one more try. So when you put all these pieces together, the low punishment, the 3 paths to success, and the 3 types of goals, you get this amazing new way of understanding why we feel what we feel when we sit down to play a game. So what's the big takeaway? It's this: games are becoming easier to finish, but that doesn't mean they're easier to play. Designers are setting us up to fail more often, just with smaller stakes. And every single game makes a deliberate choice about which paths and goals to use. And those choices directly shape how failure feels and what it says about us. It's never just a game. As our source so perfectly puts it, it's always personal. The designers are just choosing how they're going to make it personal for you. So the next time you feel that sting of defeat or that incredible rush of victory, ask yourself, was that my skill, my luck, or my labor? And how long is this feeling really going to last?